Yo, what's up, hoop heads from around the globe, and welcome to another episode of Buzzer Beaters. I'm Eddie Aparicio. This is my co-host, Anthony Tuan Corral, and tonight we are going ahead and talk about the NBA playoffs, namely Game 7 first of the Oklahoma City Thunder and Spurs series, which was an awesome series, by the way. It's too bad that wasn't the finals because we both thought whoever came out of the West was going to easily win in the over the East. We'll go ahead and talk about game one of the finals because we're completely off of that prediction, right? So those are the two topics that we're going to talk about. And then, we're going to go ahead and just tell you that, the draft is coming up for the NBA draft is coming up on the 25th and the 26th of June. It's going to be a 2-day event. And Tuan and I are going to prepare all of us for the pre-draft. And we're going to go ahead and cover every team. We're going to go ahead and do 10 next week, 10 the following week, and then 10 the last week right before the draft. So we're going to go ahead and prepare everybody about all the teams and their needs, cap space, all this stuff. So stay tuned for the next 3 weeks as we cover the pre-draft coverage for every team. All right, Tuan. So let's get into it, brother. So the first the first series, the Western Conference Finals, that was a doozy, man. I got to tell you, man. The Thunder versus the Spurs was an epic series. And it's interesting, though, that, the Thunder, they lost, I think, 6 or 7 games in the entire season to the Spurs. The Spurs have their number. We all know that basketball is a game of matchups, right? And,
it is.
And the thing is that, for our Warriors, in last year, not this year, but the year before that, Thunder were a good matchup for them. Then this past season, the Spurs were a better, matchup for him. So it's all about matchups, right? The teams that don't necessarily have the most talent always win. And,
correct.
And in this case, you can argue that the Thunder were probably a better overall, deeper team. I mean, they're the defending champs, right?
I don't know. We could argue.
You can argue that, right? But the thing is that, it came down to, Wembanyama being Wembanyama. He essentially just dominated, a few games during that series. But I would say, bro, that, the Oklahoma City Thunder were without their second best player in Jalen Williams. And he had missed a majority of the season due to hamstring issues that he had. And it kept coming back and back. Correct. So what I wanted to kind of ask your opinion.
Yeah.
Did the team did the better team win that series? One. And the second thing I want to ask you are, what are your general observations about OKC? Where do they go from here? Is it a minor tweak, or do you think that if they had Jalen Williams, it would have been a whole different deal?
So I'm not sure. From my perspective, there's a couple things that I noticed. One was Wembanyama's got ownage on Chet Holmgren.
In his head.
In his head, yeah. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, that game 7, SGA played out of his mind. The strategy was clear, kind of gang tackle SGA and force the rest of the team to do something. They did not. Jalen Williams would have helped in that instance. So to me, I think that's the game plan. So the wild card here is Jalen Williams. And so it's going to be interesting to see what the Oklahoma City Thunder do in the offseason. Because they've got about as much options as a team possibly could have.
Absolutely.
Right? They have the big three, which is Chet, Jalen, and SGA. They've got them locked up to like 2031 or something like that. They're locked up. And then they've got a couple of guys in Case, right? Is that
Case and Wallace?
Yeah, Case and Wallace, right? They've got Alex Caruso, and they've got
played out of his mind in the last series, by the way.
And they've got Jared McCain, right? We can talk about Caruso because Caruso was really valuable throughout the series, right? He was kind of keeping it together. So they've got those 3 guys, and then they've got some options, right? They've got a team option on Lou Dort. They've got a team option on Hartenstein. Are they going to keep him? Are they going to trade him? And then they've got, I believe, the 12th and 17th picks in the draft, right? And they also have a couple of second-round picks. So there's a lot that they can do. But to me, if I'm the Oklahoma City Thunder, I kind of sit on the core. Right, I sit on the group. I have a season with Jalen Williams because I think he's enough to make a difference. But I will tell you this, Eddie, and I didn't like it. It rubbed me the wrong way. This whole flopping thing that I don't know if you kind of keep an eye on it, and I don't know if it was the media making more of it than they should, and it caused me to notice it more. But I really when I started noticing it, I really didn't like the way the Thunder were kind of doing that, like a lot. And so they were falling a lot of times. I think people were counting how many times SGA hit the floor. There was like percentages, like 30% of the time he's on the floor. So I really didn't like that. So I don't know if that's kind of their game plan, or if they thought they were outmatched and they were just grasping at whatever they could do to try to stay competitive in this series. But as you'll remember, you know, the Spurs were down, you know, 3-2.
Yes.
Come game 6, they smoke them, and then they win in game 7, which, by the way, SGA had no help in that game, just none. It was him versus the Spurs, and that's the way it played out. So those are kind of some of my thoughts.
And my other big takeaway is that Chet Holmgren definitely had issues with Wembanyama. But I think the other thing is that maybe Chet Holmgren really isn't a number 2. You know, he's definitely number 3. He can't function as a number 2 on the team. And to me, that was something that was very apparent to me, that Chet Holmgren wasn't able to carry the load, the Jalen Williams load, which surprised me only because they had been playing without Jalen Williams for a large part of the season. So it was kind of like not a big deal that he was not really there. Although in the end, it probably shows that he's definitely needed for them to go, you know, to become a potential another dynasty. And that's, you know, I think they've learned that one thing that both the Thunder and the Denver Nuggets have learned is dynasties are hard. You know, this team right here, though, could potentially be the next dynasty, because we know the Warriors, when they became the dynasty, they won one, then they lost, and then they won, you know, 2 in a row, right? And then a couple of years later after that, they won the 4th. So, but you know, they have the construct to be a dynasty. It's just that one thing that I learned is that Chet Holmgren needs to be a number 3. He can't be a number 2.
I agree wholeheartedly. And the interesting thing that kind of got lost in the shuffle here is the Thunder had not lost until they played the Spurs. They had not lost a single game. And so everything was going steady, and Jalen Williams missed all of those games.
Yes.
Which then, if I'm the Thunder, that puts a little fear in me, because I don't know if that means Jalen Williams wouldn't have made a difference. Also, De'Aaron Fox was out for a couple of games starting that series. So it wasn't like
Dylan Harper too.
Correct. Dylan Harper was out, which, by the way, he's having a hell of a rookie season. You know, Carter, too, is playing pretty good. Yeah,
Carter Bryant,
correct. He's playing well. So I don't know, man. Like the Thunder, you know, like you ever I don't know how you are, Eddie, but whenever like I'm looking at a barbecue grill or a car or I'm the kind of guy that does analysis by paralysis, right? I'm like looking at this and looking at that, and I'm never, dude, if I'm the Thunder, I'm like freaking out because I got too many options. Like there's too many things that I could do. And the interesting part is going to be, like I said earlier, what are they going to do with Dort? What are they going to do with Hartenstein? Are they going to trade him? Are they going to sign the team option and then try to get some other veteran help? Because the one thing also that was apparent to me is outside of Chet Holmgren and Hartenstein, they're a little undersized in the front court, right? They could use a little bit more size. They could use a little – and again, I know those guys are big, but, you know, Hartenstein was hacking away at Wemby, and Chet was just bowing down. So they need something else, I think. They
have Jalen Williams, too. The Jalen Williams from Arkansas, he's kind of like a stretch 5 for them. Yeah. He actually is a pretty decent player. They're a very deep team. I think that they have a lot of flexibility. They don't necessarily have to sign, you know, Lou Dort. They have, you know, Alex Caruso. They picked up Jared McCain in the middle of the season, and that guy proved to be, you know, a force in that series, you know, against the Spurs. He actually played pretty damn well, man, and saved them a few times, as well as Alex Caruso. Alex Caruso and Jared McCain emerged as the under-the-radar stars for the Thunder in that last series. Yes. But in the end, the Spurs matched up very well, and I think that the Spurs guards were the difference. Mainly Dylan Harper, I would say. De'Aaron Fox was kind of hit and miss sometimes, but the guy who really impressed me, man, was Julian Champagnie. Yeah. That dude played out of his mind.
Yeah, especially the last couple of minutes in Game 7, he couldn't miss, and
he was shooting lights out. And
he carried that into the Knicks game too. He started hot. Yes.
Yeah. So you know, so before we get into the finals, and you know, I wanted to kind of just go over Game 7, kind of get your thoughts on the Thunder. I think we kind of understand now that, they have a lot of flexibility. They have guys that are sitting in the wings, waiting for their opportunity. You have the Brooks Barnheiser, the guy that they drafted last year. They had Nikola Topic, who was, a lottery pick or from the year before that. These guys haven't really played. And, they have, and Cason Wallace, I think, has emerged as a really, really good player, a really good 3-and-D type, guard type of player. So
yeah, he's definitely fitting. He's got a spot in the rotation for this upcoming.
For sure.
Yep.
But the thing is, getting to the SGA flop fest, dude.
Yes.
He's a really, really good player, bro.
Oh, he is.
One thing that I've seen about him, he's silky smooth. He's really good at the mid-range shot. He's herky-jerky, really hard to kind of defend because he's so herky-jerky. The one thing, though, bro, and I hate this. Dude, I get it. It's an art to draw a foul.
Yeah, I don't like it, though.
He is the James Harden 2.0 of this era.
Yes.
This era. But he's like even worse than Harden.
Yes, and it's so annoying.
He falls down on every freaking play. Like, he's always trying to bait the refs. And shame on the refs for always taking the freaking bait.
Yeah, and you know what's upsetting was a couple of years ago, the NBA announced that they would start calling technical fouls on people that were caught baiting.
Yes.
And I don't know what happened to that. I don't know where that
stopped.
went. I mean, they were calling fouls on De'Aaron Fox when he wasn't even touching SGA.
Yes.
It was clear he wasn't touching him.
Yes.
They review it and they still stick to the call. I'm like, come on, man.
Dude, it's brutal, man. It's egregious, man. It's like so blatant that he's trying to bait the refs, and the refs take it every freaking time. They take the bait all the time, dude. And it's like, come on, refs. You guys are better than that, bro. All right? You guys are the best of the best, supposedly, of being able to call one of the hardest games to call with the greatest athletes that, on the planet. And you guys are getting just duped left and right by players who are intentionally trying to dupe you, and yet you are supporting their behavior. That's shame on them, man. Yeah. The refs need to change their behavior. The scoring committee or the committee, that the rules committee, they need to revisit all of this stuff and really enforce fines on these teams or players that are just obviously trying to bait the refs. And shame on the refs for doing it, man. They allow this behavior to continue.
No, I agree. This behavior's got to be corrected somehow. Like, it's got to be balanced out. You can't just keep giving players that flop, or players that, I mean, even they're flopping on the screens. They flop everywhere, and it has to stop.
And you got a player like Curry plays the game the right way, and that guy gets fouled. He's marked up every game, barely gets the calls, man. Barely. And it's like they're rewarding the players who are just blatantly trying to get the calls, whereas someone who's trying to play the game right and actually gets fouled but doesn't try and flail and doesn't get the calls. That's BS, man.
I agree.
And for a superstar talent like Curry, and we're Warrior fans, we have to bring it to Curry because we're Warrior fans, and our team is out. So it sucks that our team is out, but we want to bring it back to Curry because Curry is probably the biggest superstar that hardly gets any calls. It's a shame because he tries to play the game the right way and yet doesn't get rewarded for playing the game the right way. But these other guys, these other bozos and clowns who try and get the calls are getting the calls because the refs are taking the bait, man. It just sucks. So
I agree, and I think that they should get a technical foul whenever they're baiting, and it's clear that they're baiting, and I think that would help. That would go tremendously in curing this and having people stop flopping.
They got to do it, man. They got to do something, because SGA is the worst at it. He's by far
the worst or the best, however you want to look. He's the most gifted at doing that. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
he's the most, or the highest rewarded player for flopping. So anyway,
I agree. You did say something though there that caught my attention. You mentioned the Warriors dynasty, how they won one and then they lost one and then they won two.
Yes.
I was just kind of thinking that as you were kind of like, I see like the little words in a bubble above your head, and I'm kind of like digesting that. And the thing that crossed my mind was, might history repeat itself? Because there's been rumors that Giannis is associated with the Thunder. I've read it a little bit.
No way.
Yeah, I've read it.
I've heard the Miami Heat. I've heard the Miami Heat is the one that he
Yeah,
really
so
wants to go to.
I've read some, and when you look at all the options that the Thunder have, right, and obviously one of the reasons the Warriors went from winning one to losing one to winning two is they picked up a little guy by the name of Kevin Durant, and I'm wondering if that blueprint is going to repeat itself.
Oh, with Giannis coming to the Thunder.
Correct, because I mean, if you're thinking that Holmgren is, maybe third banana, or maybe he's a trait. So, like, if you can put a package together where you get the 17th pick, the 12th pick, Chet Holmgren, and Lou Dort, I mean,
they probably have to throw in more though. They probably have to throw in maybe
but what I'm saying is that's just the starting point.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You could add some pieces there. You could do some. So anyway, I just thought about that because
that's interesting. Curious. I mean, they definitely have the assets. Correct. Definitely the trade assets that Milwaukee Bucks would covet for sure. The thing is that Giannis would want to go to a destination that's not that far from Greece, for one. Oklahoma City Thunder is a little bit farther than, I would say that Milwaukee is, I think, or similar. I think that's part of the reason why the West Coast is pretty much out of the question. Miami is one of the farthest east that's close to Greece, right? So I think that's why, and New York is another one that he's also coveted before, and it's mainly for proximity to Greece. But the other thing is, in his mind, it's easier to come out of the East than it is to come out of the West. And the West is too crowded. But it does make sense for him to go to probably, like you said, the parallels to the Warriors, when the Warriors lost to the Cavs, and then they got Kevin Durant, and then, boom, they put him over the hump. They won 2 in a row. It's very similar. You're right. It could be, Giannis and the Bucks might be saying, okay, Giannis, you want to go to the Thunder, and the Thunder had a lot of assets to be able to offer the Bucks, and Giannis would definitely make them put him over the top and pair him up with SGA and that defense. They're going to be a force to reckon with. So it's a good call, bro. I like that one. Yeah, it's a possibility, man. So
that's what I think.
Yeah. All right, bro. So let's go and dovetail. Okay. So before, we were planning to have this recording yesterday before the game. And then we thought, let's just go ahead and wait till the game is over. Yes. Before the series was going to start, I was going to ask for your opinion. And we both even talked about this in previous podcasts that, whoever came out of the West was more than likely going to take whoever was representing the East. And we thought that whoever won this game, the Spurs or the Thunder, was going to be the ones that were going to win the championship, right? Yes. Because the both of those teams were superior to the East for the most part. Then you have the Knicks, who hadn't played in over a week. And the team that hasn't played in over a week usually is very rusty. And the Knicks came, dude, they were playing lights out. And the thing is, I got to tell you, the Spurs at times did look a little tired, which surprised me because, they came out of the 7-game series, very emotional 7-game series. I'm sure that has something to do with it. But they were usually the team that has been playing has an advantage because, they're already geeked up and ready to go, right? But the Knicks completely surprised me. And at one point, when the Spurs were up at like 12 points and counting, I'm like, okay, this is it. It's over, right? But then the Knicks came back, roaring back. And I got to tell you, bro, Karl-Anthony Towns, they might have discovered something in how to defend, Victor Wembanyama with, because he's got a lot of beef, right? Karl-Anthony Towns is a husky guy. And, we have seen with, the likes of the Draymond Green, who's also a very husky. He plays Wembanyama pretty hard, right? And he's probably one of the better guys at defending Wembanyama in the league. And he's way undersized, but he bodies him and he frustrates him. And I guarantee you, Mike Brown, who came from the Warriors, he has seen Draymond Green in action against, I don't know if he was with the Wembanyama when Wembanyama came in the league with the Warriors, if Mike Brown was or not.
I think he was a year or two, but yeah.
Either a year, probably a year, because this is the fourth year of Wembanyama right now. So it's probably maybe the first year before he went to Sacramento, right? But he knows how Draymond Green guards guys like him and Jokic, and he probably enforced that to Karl-Anthony Towns to body him up because, you can neutralize him if you body him up because his center of gravity is so high that yours is a lot lower. You can control him. And therefore you could see that he was having a hard time navigating down low. So he had to stay outside for the most part and he relegated him to be an outside shooting big, which, Wembanyama's a pretty good outside shooting big. I got to tell you, man, his dribbling skills are unbelievable. His shooting for his size at 7'4", 7'5" is unbelievable. But when he gets down low, dude, he definitely seems to have some challenges against somebody like a Karl-Anthony Towns, right? Then you got Mitchell Robinson, who's another guy. He had an index finger or something or one of was pinky or something that was hurt. He had surgery, and they weren't sure if he was going to play. But he's long, and he's definitely someone. They have two guys that can create problems for Wembanyama. So I wanted to get kind of your take. That was my observation as to what I saw in that game one, is that Karl-Anthony Towns did a really exceptional job at guarding Wembanyama, in my opinion.
Correct. So I had three things earmarked as things that I noticed from game one that I thought that impacted impacted game one. The first one was Karl-Anthony Towns, like you mentioned.
Yes.
He plays him physical. He wasn't giving ground like Chet Holmgren was. He was fast enough to stay in front of him. Isaiah Hartenstein couldn't. So that was one. Two was the difference in flopping versus the Knicks' aggressive behavior towards the hoop, attacking. I think that whole mindset was very different to them, because the Thunder were more like failing back, and they wasn't as aggressive, and New York got really aggressive. And then number three was the guard there. Wow, I was getting so old, I forget. Brunson. Jalen Brunson. He's a gamer, man. I mean, he is a gamer, and I don't know. The Dallas Mavericks at one point had Luka and Brunson in the backcourt, and they may have given away two of the best backcourt players in the history of the NBA. But I think that was that, and the key thing was in the fourth quarter, the Knicks had no turnovers. They played solid, and they were there, and I thought, like you thought, okay, whoever comes out of it, the Spurs, the Knicks are going to roll over. Kudos to Mike Brown. I like Mike Brown. He's a good guy. My impression of Mike Brown historically has been good guys finish last, and he's always kind of the good guy that's always finishing last.
Yep.
And he's got this team playing. And I'm glad you brought up the Draymond Green piece, because I hadn't really connected those dots. You bring up an excellent point. Get physical with Wemby. And now we're going to see what Wemby does, right? Is Wemby going to challenge back? Is he going to push? Because Wemby didn't really have a horrible game.
No.
But he wasn't a difference maker. And it took a lot of shots to get to the points that he did. I think he ended up with 21 points, but he was like 6 for 21 or something like that, which is efficiency was just horrible.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So, and the thing for me, like the one player on the Spurs who has to play well, in my opinion, is De'Aaron Fox. He has to play well. Yes. He's a matchup problem when he's on. And did you see he pickpocketed Jalen Brunson, man? Pretty whoa, right?
Yeah.
When he's engaged, he can be really good defensively. It's just that's not really what he's known for. But from an offensive standpoint, he could challenge Jalen Brunson in the garden, because he's so freaking fast. He's hard to deal with. He's so fast. So for me, I think he is the one player on the Spurs that needs to play well for the Spurs to win. Now, if he doesn't play well, you got someone like a Dylan Harper who can essentially kind of substitute for De'Aaron Fox. He's they're both lefties, but De'Aaron Fox is way more shifty, whereas Dylan Harper's kind of a bigger, stronger kid. And by the way, he's part Filipino too, man. So you throw it up for your wife, man, because Twan's wife is Filipino. And so there's Gordon Clarkson, him, Dylan Harper, and then Jared McCain is another one I've heard is also Filipino. So the Filipinos in the world, man, they're getting their hoops in, baby. So
good for them.
But the thing is, the other guy that has emerged on the Spurs is that I already mentioned, the aforementioned Julian Champagnie. That dude is unbelievable, dude. I mean, that guy came out of nowhere. I mean, he has been playing. He's kind of like the Alex Caruso of the Spurs right now, in my opinion. And so you have those three guys or four guys with Dylan Harper playing well, and then you at that point, everybody else is just they can contribute and they can still pull it off because they have probably the best player in the entire series in Wembanyama. But then Jalen Brunson has something to say about that too, because for a little guy, And he is shifty as heck, man.
And he's clutch. And he can,
dude, he's like, he's a gamer, man. And I got to tell you, man, the New York fans are just losing their mind right now. They're losing their S, bro, because, they have a reason to cheer again. It's been since, 1972 or 73, since Clyde Frazier won it, right? It's been that long. And, dude, I got to tell you, Jalen, if the Knicks pull this off, dude, Jalen Brunson is going to be like, he's going to be on the Mount Rushmore of New York Knicks. Because right now,
he'll never pay for a meal in his life, dude.
He'll never pay for a meal in his life. And then Mike Brown will be automatic first ballot Hall of Fame, because we know the New York media will be all over their team if they win this thing, right? And amazing. But I got to give it to them, man. They came out with a great game plan. The Knicks, I thought, didn't have a shot to win more than one game. I gave it a 5. I get 4-1, 5 games max. That's what I initially was going to project and predict. But now, man, dude, I mean, if the Knicks win game 2, which I doubt, but if they do, it's a wrap. It's a wrap.
Yeah.
Dude. And I would have never thought that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. There's a couple of things that I would consider. One was, as you mentioned, there was a lot of fans in that arena last night.
Yeah.
I think that for the younger players, that's a little bit of a shocker. So that takes some getting acclimated to. So I think they'll be better at game 2. And the other one is they're tired. I mean, they had 3 days off, but they had a hell of a series. Hopefully now the Knicks are kind of in the flow and they'll start to wear down a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. But I agree with you. I want to say it's game over, but game 2 is going to be a pretty important game. I mean, they could still come back and win game 3 or win game 4 and have it a 3-1 series. But this next game is going to be pretty pivotal for the Spurs.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is, if I were to look at both rosters, and if I were to kind of look at the pros and cons of both teams, if I were to look at the Spurs roster, I would say they definitely have the youth behind them. They definitely have a deeper team, right? They're way more defensive oriented, just naturally as a team. They played the Thunder, who's considered the best defensive team in the league. They played them, pretty much, mano a mano, right? They were there. They were both playing really, really well defensively and offensively. So I thought, the Spurs collectively are a better, younger, defensive-minded team, deeper than the Knicks, right? The Knicks, they have a better starting 5. Their wings, with OG Anunoby, then you have Mikal Bridges, those guys, along with Karl-Anthony Towns is in a wing, but then you have Jalen Brunson, and, their starting 5 is probably better collectively than
I would
the
agree.
Spurs. But the Spurs, I think, are better. They're deeper. And they're younger. So that usually favors a series like this would favor a Spurs kind of complexion, right? Rather than the older Knicks. But the Knicks surprised me. I did not see that one coming. And to win by 10 points, and they were losing by over, I think 12 they were losing by, if not more. That's amazing, dude. I got to give it to the Knicks. That's amazing.
The interesting thing, this is not a controversial statement, but the thing that I noted was that they gained that lead primarily with Wembanyama on the bench. Lou Cornette was on the court. That was right around towards the middle of the second quarter. Yep. And it was interesting. Again, I'm not saying that Lou Cornette needs to start or anything like that, but Lou Cornette at that point in the game seemed to be making more of an impact down low than Wembanyama was able to when Cat was guarding him. So just something to take a look at. To me, it's something that maybe, Cornette has a bigger role. Cornette, plays a little more minutes than previously anticipated. Just something to note. I'm not saying that Cornette is better than Wembanyama, not at all. But, Cornette's got a little more heft to him. And so he can kind of move things around a little bit. So just something to note.
So if the Spurs win game 2, what would have to be the reason? What's the main reason that stands out for them to win game 2? What do you think is the main player, the main scheme? What do you think is the?
So to me, it's got to be clear and obvious that Wembanyama has gotten the better of Cat. That Cat hasn't been able to slow Wembanyama down. I think that's going to be the main difference. Obviously, some of the perimeter players can get hot. Champagnie started off hot when they got the lead. He cooled off by the end. What's interesting is their turnovers. They got to cut out the turnovers, man.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of turnovers. And so to me, that's the two things that I would look at. Protect the ball, and Wembanyama's got to – I don't want to say he's got to score more points, but he's got to be more efficient. He's definitely got to be more efficient in this game. And if he can do that and get a little bit of not ownage, but, get the better of Cat, because I think Cat got the better of him last night.
Yep.
If he can do those two things, I think they got a shot, because I think Stephon Castle's going to show up. I think Fox will show up. I think maybe a little more Harrison Barnes on guarding some of the bigger wings that they have, like OG Anunoby and things like that. Harrison Barnes always been a solid defender.
Yes.
So I think if you have him a little bit more, that would be good. But I think to me that's the biggest thing is Wembanyama's efficiency. What do you think?
Yeah, it's Wembanyama is going to have to find a way to establish himself not only outside but down low. In my opinion, he's going to have to find a way to neutralize Karl-Anthony Towns' defense. He's got to figure out how to work around the body, the bodying that he's getting right now. And it might be maybe Wembanyama becomes more of a playmaker. Like they start kind of adjusting to that body and then use his height to be able to shift things around and find the open man, like kind of become more Nikola Jokic-like, because he does have the ability to pass. He's just not as good as Nikola Jokic. But Wembanyama cannot stay outside, man. He can't. I mean, that's the only way that he could free himself up from Karl-Anthony Towns is by staying outside and using his length to be able to get a shot off. But he's got to be able to find a way to get closer to the rim. And if he's not able to score, he's able to dish it to somebody, because he commands a lot of attention. Once he gets the ball, everybody's around him wants to get to him, because he's essentially their best player. But they have other guys like Stephon Castle, like you mentioned, De'Aaron Fox. You have Julian Champagnie. You have like you said, Harrison Barnes, Dylan Harper. They have other guys that can score, and I think that's probably going to be one of what I see as a big adjustment. I think they're going to try and make Wembanyama more of the playmaker in game 2 and utilize the entire squad so they neutralize the impact that Karl-Anthony Towns had on Wembanyama.
So, question for you, Eddie. I don't believe I saw it in game 1. Do you think they'll play Kornet and Wembanyama together at the same time?
That's not a bad thought. I mean, it's usually can't do that, because when you have two bigs like that, it kind of limits your offensive capabilities. But Wembanyama is a scoring big, so and he plays more like a small forward, in my opinion, than a guard.
That's what I'm thinking. You have Kornet take up that space, that weight, and then freeze up Wembanyama a little bit. Just a thought, something to look at.
Dude, before I forget, before we move on, dude, Mitch Johnson, we both thought he might get Coach of the Year. I can't believe that he did not get Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That Joe Mazzulla got it?
Yeah.
I don't know about that, bro.
East Coast bias.
That's East Coast bias to the max, dude.
East Coast bias.
I couldn't believe that when I saw that. I go, dude, Joe Mazzulla, what?
Yeah.
No way, dude. You got it. I mean, dude, freaking the Spurs weren't even. They were a play-in team last year, and then they became a number 2 seed. And you're going to give it to Joe Mazzulla only because Jason Tatum had gotten hurt, and they still had a pretty good squad, and they they were the number 2 seed as well. I think the Celtics,
the Celtics, right? I believe they were. Yes,
they were the number 2 seed. So, but the thing is that Celtics were the defending Eastern Conference guys, right? Before that, and I just thought Mitch Johnson got robbed, in my opinion.
I agree with you. I agree he got robbed, but he'll probably end up getting it next year, regardless of how San Antonio does. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. Man.
Sometimes these votes are a year late,
Yeah, I hear you. But dude, we covered the finals of game 1. Our next show will be next week, and we'll be probably into game 4 by the time we have our next podcast next week. But I also want to kind of tell you that, as I mentioned before the show started, is that we're going to go ahead and start covering some of the teams next week, and these are the teams that we're going to cover. So in the East, we're going to cover the Pistons, the Bucks, the Bulls, and the Pacers as part of the pre-draft reviews. And then for the Western Conference, we're going to cover the Southeast Division. And I did misspell Southeast. I put Southeast Division.
Yeah, that's all right.
The Spurs, the Rockets, the Pelicans, the Mavs, and the Grizzlies. Both Twan and I think I'm missing somebody in the Central Division. There should be 5 teams, I think. But anyway, anyway, I'll figure it out. I messed up somewhere. But we're going to cover these teams next week. So stay tuned, and we're going to cover 10 teams next week, the 10 teams the following week, the 10 teams before that, and then we're going to have our live draft show on the 25th and 26th of June. All right, everyone. Thanks again for listening.
I had one more thing to add.
Thank you. You have something before I give
basketball related, but I wanted to ask your opinion, and I wanted to give my editorial about. And I know we're Warriors fans, so the people yelling your homers, yell away. Curry's new shoe deal.
Yeah.
Fascinating to me.
$400 million deal.
Correct, but it isn't the money that's fascinating me. The thing is, some of the details in the deal. Number one, they're going to give him his own brand, which that means he'll have Curry stores. He can sign people under his brand. It's not only basketball shoes, it's leisure wear, it's golf line, it's a whole gamut of things. This is fascinating to me because I think that this is framing itself up as the closest thing that we might have to attacking the Jordan empire.
I agree with you.
And so this is going to be very fascinating. The shoes, Jimmy Butler, Dwayne Wade, there's a couple of other NBA players that are under the Li Ning line. And the Li Ning line has a good reputation on the quality of shoes and the technology that they're putting into their shoes. So I think there's a solid foundation there. So I just wanted to quickly give an editorial on that. I think people that are shoe geeks, which there's a lot of them out there, I'm curious what this is going to do to the potential Jordan line, because the Jordan line, in my opinion, has remained stagnant for quite a while. It's the same kind of Jordan shoes. They bring them out in different colors. There's and if you're a Jordan head, I'm not attacking, your love of Air Jordans or anything like that, but it's good to have competition. So I'm really going to be curious in the next couple of years how this plays out.
And the Jordan brand has not only gone to basketball, but it's gone into other sports.
Yes.
So, Curry's got, you can argue, all right, that Curry is probably has the biggest brand impact potentially to rival that of Jordan because of, Curry's popularity as a player. It rivals Jordan, but it's not the same. I'm not saying it's at the same level.
No.
I'm saying that if anybody can rival Jordan, it would be Curry and not LeBron. All right. LeBron is very polarizing. He's a polarizing figure because you have mentioned it. We've had many podcasts, shorts, clips about, LeBron being very concerned about his brand. And, he's polarizing for that reason. He's, and the way he conducts himself in games, dude, I got to tell you, he's an awesome player. I'm not taking anything away. And I'm not a LeBron hater. I'm far from it. I don't like LeBron, but I respect the hell out of his game. He's an unbelievable player. Arguably top 3 player of all time. I'm not going to say he's top 1 or 2, top 3 in my opinion, right? Because I'm of the same. We were both in the same school that Kareem should be up in that top tier, top 2, right? Along with Jordan. But Jordan by far is number 1. But Curry being the type of person that he is, he's very internationally renowned. Not one iota of any bad news do you hear about this guy. He is as clean as you see from a brand standpoint in any sport. Nobody has any issues with this guy. And Jordan, as good as a player as he was, there was always things that followed him about, the gambling stuff, right? I'm not saying he's a degenerate gambler. I'm not saying there's always something about him following him about the gambling angle, but it's just that was a kind of a dark shadow, unfortunately, to him a little bit, but it didn't necessarily overpower his brand. It's just something that kind of was there. Curry has jack nothing, bro. Nothing.
Nothing at this point.
Nothing.
And the interesting thing here, though, Eddie, is I don't know if Curry could surpass Jordan in the U.S. market, but in China,
it's not even close.
I think he's going to wipe the floor with Nike.
Yes.
Right. And so if you look at it globally,
yes,
he has the potential to generate way more revenue than the Jordans.
Absolutely.
The Jordan brand is going to, from this point forward, I'm not talking historically, because that's a big mountain to climb. They've generated a lot of revenue over the last 30 plus years or whatever, however long, the Jordan brand has been in line. But this is what fascinates me. Like, how is this going to play out? And he was attacking the lineup, if you will, with Under Armour, and Under Armour never really used him to his potential. I think they never kind of branded him. And so I just think this is fascinating from that perspective. I'm really curious to see his first set of shoes. I'm really curious when you start seeing Steph Curry stores, because that's what they're going to be. They're not going to be, it's going to be like Steph Curry Li Ning or something. Like, it'll be like the smaller part, because he's their introduction into the American market.
Yes.
That's the way they're going to get in here. And it's going to be fascinating. I'm really going to pay attention, because no one has even come remotely close to the Jordan empire. Not LeBron, not the Kobe's, not Shaq's line, not anybody. Jordan has reigned supreme for a long time. And I think this has the potential to make them a little nervous, make Nike a little nervous.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If there was one player in any sport that had the impact, the influence, the popularity that Jordan had, the one player that has that pull and gravity is definitely Curry.
It's Curry.
You could also argue that the sport isn't as big, okay? But Gretzky is kind of like, that guy for hockey.
Yeah.
He's highly regarded as the best hockey player we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Had the reputation of being a good guy like Curry is, right? A good person. Players would protect him. If no one would fight the guy, because he's the greatest.
Yeah.
Gretzky's the greatest. You're not going to touch that guy. Curry's the same kind of impact, but basketball is more globally renowned as a sport than hockey. Gretzky would have that impact if hockey was a bigger sport worldwide.
I agree.
Curry is that, because basketball is, one of the bigger sports worldwide.
Correct.
We know football, American football dominates, here in the U.S. and it's gotten a lot more traction internationally because of these, London games that we have, right? The UK that has, games and so forth, the Mexico City. So they're starting to get their reach, but internationally, basketball is probably a bigger sport than.
In Europe and Asia, you could argue basketball is the largest sport in Europe outside of football, right? Or soccer outside of that. But in Asia, basketball is second to none.
Yeah.
I mean, baseball's in some cities, they play a lot of baseball, but basketball is pretty huge in Asia. And so again, I'm going to keep an eye on this. I can't wait to see the Curry ones or whatever they're going to call them, for that first series of shoes. And I'm going to watch it, because I think it's fascinating from a marketing perspective, how this plays out.
They should call it the chef specials, baby.
Yeah, whatever they call it, Chef Curry's. That's
the chef specials, baby. Because the chefs only have specials on the menu, right? He's the chef specials.
And if we're fortunate enough to be doing this podcast for another 10 years, in 10 years, Curry won't be playing, but we may be talking about his shoes. We may be talking about his golfing line. We may be talking about his leisure wear.
His empire, right? And how we can throw Jordan's empire.
We'll see. And won't that stick to LeBron nice and
I know.
and good? He's pissy about that. Anyway, that was a
great topic of discussion. Great editorial there, Twan, and thanks for bringing that up before I closed out our podcast. But anyway, this is Buzzer Beaters. We're here, every week. Although we're going to probably start winding down here shortly, because the NBA Finals, once that starts, then we have the draft. The draft's coming up at the end of the month. I already talked about the live draft show that we're going to have, and we're going to do the pre-draft coverages for all the teams in the next 3 weeks. And then, the summer league will be here. And by the way, one thing I do want to announce to the crowd or to the audience here is that we do have a WNBA specialist who's going to be joining our show. He's my brother-in-law, and he's agreed to be on this. And we're probably going to introduce him probably sometime towards the middle to late part of the summer when the WNBA starts getting kind of towards the playoffs. And he's a big WNBA card trader too. So for those of you who want to tune into some of his knowledge, we're going to talk about him as well. But I just wanted to introduce that person going to be joining here shortly. He's agreed to be on not weekly, but regularly on as WNBA.
I'm excited. I'm excited about that.
Yeah. And he's a really knowledgeable guy. He's just a really smart guy. You guys will get a kick out of this guy. But anyway, so we're going to go ahead and kind of end our show here. This is Buzzer Beaters. Eddie Aparicio. This is my co-host Anthony Tuan Corral. We're brought to you by grumblingsmedia.com. You can find us there as wherever else you can find your podcasts. Anyway, until then, next week, have a good week, everyone. And until then, take care.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody, this is William Del Pilar, founder of Grumblings Media, and I want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our all-volunteer efforts at Grumblings Media, smash the subscribe button right here. 100% free, and please consume and share our great content. Click either one of these two boxes for more of our work.